You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. As I mentioned on Twitter, you guys, if you guys don't have Twitter and you might not have seen, the 49 Carats Podcast will now be featuring a number of different guest hosts for each episode, and they'll rotate. They'll be reoccurring. And so our first guest host of the 49 Carats Podcast here is Jose Sanchez. He is the deputy editor of All 49ers on Sports Illustrated, SI.com. How you doing today, Jose?
Oh, it feels great. I'm going to follow up Angie. No pressure at all, but I think it even feels a little more cooler that I'm sharing it with someone else who shares the same last name. What's up, cousin? How are we doing?
Yeah, if you guys didn't know, we're long lost cousins. That's just what we'll tell everyone. But Jose, like there's so much to talk about, and so I really just want to get into it right away. And with that, tight end Ross Dolly, he signs a 1-year deal with the 49ers. This is what everyone is talking about. This is all the rage. Oh, man. But, I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, I already brought it up. So, like, let me get your quick thoughts on Ross Dolly being back for another year.
Oh, God. I kind of want to clip this part to say he stinks just so I can send him to Grant and piss him off just because it'll be funny. He'll just go out of my neck. But no, they needed a good, like, nice little backup tight end because the odds of Kittle getting injured and having Ross to step up in a capacity is pretty likely, you'd say, because Kittle always misses a good few games a season. So, yeah, just good depth. I thought maybe they would, tinker a little bit with maybe a more elevated talent at tight end. But, the way the salary cap is right now, hold on to Jimmy and so on and so forth, it kind of seems like it wasn't too much of a priority of theirs. That's why they ended up settling for bringing back Ross the Boss.
Yeah, and personally, I don't think this really deters them from drafting a tight end. I mean, you still need to draft a long-term answer at tight end too. So I still think they draft one probably a little bit later than, originally planned maybe with this move. Who knows? Now they can like kind of wait and develop someone for a year, make sure they got their blocking in order before they get thrown in the fire. But that's the news on Ross Dolly. He is back. That's some pretty good news. Solid signing there. Not mad about it. But in all seriousness, let's jump right into what we really came for, right? John, Kyle, they finally spoke. The annual NFL owners meeting happening right now. I mean, Kyle Shanahan this morning looked pretty tired, pretty hungover. I can't blame him. I would have probably been on the same boat. But first, before we talk about Kyle Shanahan's comments, I want to talk about John Lynch's, because yesterday, personally, I was a little upset with some of his comments because they didn't really do the trick for me. Like, one, he said they don't plan to release Jimmy Garoppolo. It's like, well, he's still on the roster. We already knew that. So we kind of figured he might say something to that effect, right? But to me, it was more so what he didn't say. And I mean, maybe it was the fact that, no reporters asked him, straight up, like, about Trey Lance and what Jimmy Garoppolo still being on the roster means for Trey Lance, right? So I want to get your thoughts on that really quickly. Just like, what were your thoughts on John Lynch's comments, and in particular, him not mentioning Trey Lance, and saying that they don't plan to release Jimmy?
Yeah, I think that's a little nuts that you're still showing a lack of commitment to Trey Lance at this point. That's why until Jimmy Garoppolo's off the roster, I'm not saying like, is this really Trey's team? Are we sure? Because I do not see it out of the total realm of possibility, given how much they love Jimmy, that could they run it back with him as a backup, as a starter? Is he going to stay on the roster? I mean, we just heard today from Jed. He says, yeah, I don't care about the salary. That's all good for me. So they definitely could bring it back, especially in OTAs if they don't like Trey. I don't know there's multiple ways you can look at it. Is it one, try to motivate him, keep him on the edge of the seat, push him? Number two, is it to keep a contingency in case they don't see Trey as polished enough as where he would like to be going along to where they can hand him the keys? Or maybe it's just stubbornness of like trying to save value, just like, hey, look, we're trying to keep everyone in the league guessing, which if that's one of the things you're doing, then that's kind of dumb in my sense. I think it's idiotic hearing me going that route because it's kind of clear. We all saw what they saw. The teams are letting you know what's up with Jimmy. They literally said, the Steelers, my favorite thing, we'll take Mitch. We'll take our boy Big Mitch over Jimmy Garoppolo. So we're cool off you.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a little ridiculous how they're showing a huge lack that, because I think they should just cut Jimmy Garoppolo beginning of free agency. So you could have maximized your efforts to go after these players in free agency to Spurs, because that's the whole point of why the free agency or why Trey Lance's contract is attractive. So to me, I'm really aboard with you and why he didn't really, say that. He doesn't necessarily need to, but it's like, hey, you know what? Because now you leave the door open for all these charades.
Exactly. Like it wouldn't hurt. And like, I get it. Like, it seems like John Lynch, his answers were very black and white, giving you the straight answer. And when you looked at Kyle Shanahan's comments today, he added a little more color to basically the same things that Lynch said, but like Kyle Shanahan made me feel better about the situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a little more sprinkle, a little sprinkle on, kind of
like
doubling down, but a little more
Salt Bay going
on the cupcake. You know what I'm saying?
Little Salt Bay. He added some little more information there. But yesterday, John Lynch also said that going back to the combine and his comments there, because that before yesterday, the last time that we had heard John Lynch speak was at the combine. We hadn't heard Kyle Shanahan speak since like the end of the season. So long break for him. But at the combine, John Lynch said that having Jimmy Garoppolo would not curtail what they would be able to do in free agency. So that's what he said. And then yesterday, he kind of contradicted himself a bit on that. And he said, yeah, we were able to do everything we wanted to do in free agency. Like, we had to free up some cap room and do some things we had to work through, but we were able to do everything we expected and planned for. So give me your thoughts on that. Like, is he BSing us? Is he just like looking at it from one perspective that maybe we're not? Like, what's going on there?
Hell yeah, he's BSing us. I mean, my full reaction when I saw him say all these things, I felt like Waka Flocka. Okay, John, all right, whatever you say there, buddy. I mean, I really hate just reading so much in these pressers, and because it's like, dude, it's nothing but just a puppet show to me. It's just an image, and it's always something where you could do more damage to yourself than you can making yourself look better, because it's just window dressing. Literally, that's all it is. And that's why we all ran with it when Kyle was being so weird this time last year about he can't guarantee if someone's going to be alive by Sunday. I was like, why are you trying so hard in this presser here, my man? Can you just like relax, give us a little like more like insight other than trying so hard to, keep us off the scent or whatever you're trying to do here? So I think in that case, like Lynch is just, I think he's not a good liar. He never has been. I mean, look when he, was it the exit presser, I think, where, he's pulling on his ear about like, he's getting told about, hey, I heard you were going back to commentate on football. How do you feel about that? And he's just like getting all like fidgety and stuff like that. He'd be the worst poker player ever. So I just think for me, it's to view him that way. He's not used to trying to cover up, hide things, or kind of deviate the truth a little bit, trying to spin it. So I think you can definitely smell it. Kyle's good at it. Kyle's pretty good because sometimes you can't really tell. So he's got it mastered up. But of course, it's because look at who his dad is, has been around it his whole life. So yeah, he's definitely BSing us at this point. I'm pretty sure that the fact that they said that the first time at the combine, he's like, having Jimmy, we really kind of overplayed our hand here, is what everyone's saying. They really overvalued him, and it kind of is we should have really expected this. The fact that his leadership is one of the first things you say about a quarterback. Great. You want leadership to be key in a quarterback because that's why Carson Wentz and Baker Mayfield are not on their teams anymore. But if that's your top leading thing, there's an issue. All right. You're not really being a big contributor while your team is successful, and leadership is definitely not one of them. And it makes it worse with his shoulder and just his overall body of work with his injury history.
Of course there's an issue. I mean, Lynch even said that he admitted they didn't get any offers for him. He said like pretty much talks didn't go anywhere. And that to me is like a red flag, and it should ring an alarm to them as well. Like, and in their heads, they think it's only because of the shoulder. I think they're the shoulder is a big deal to some
Yep.
teams, but I really don't think that's the only reason that, they're not going to consider him. If he was a more talented quarterback, you'd say, hell yeah, let's take a flyer on Jimmy. We just saw the Browns trade for, someone who potentially committed sexual assault. So and again, it's because Deshaun Watson is a good quarterback. So other teams don't view Jimmy Garoppolo that way.
I totally love what you're saying about that, because I think I kind of don't view the shoulder injury as such a big deal as the way they're putting it, as like the only thing. I mean, it's a big deal. I don't mean to like just dumb it down, but to me, it's like, hey, if teams knew that Jimmy was a factor as to why the 49ers went as far as they did the NFC title game, he'd been traded. And people would just say, we liked what you did last season. You played pretty well. You kind of balled out. You're a big reason why your team went that far. We're going to acquire you. Here's the playbook. Come training camp. You already got it down. Now at this point, it's just pretty much just getting the cobwebs off. But now it's like, that's why I think it's funny how they think you're going to be able to trade him come August. It's like, wait, if no one's going to trade him now to get his thinking cap on with the playbook, why are you going to trade him last minute and try to force his pressure? I mean, it's not like he's doing that great in the system of Kyle Shanahan's in the first place. You're going to expect him to you're going to do him a disservice now. That's right. The part I think is funky. And I think that's why they're going to end up cutting him, if not holding him through the whole season. I feel like those are only really two options, unfortunately. And I think it scares me. It scares Niner fans.
Yeah, I mean, it's anybody's guess what they will actually do. They keep saying like they have a plan. They have a plan. Do you think that they have an actual? Do you think they have an actual plan? Because they keep saying, they didn't say this, but you can assume that by holding on to Jimmy Garoppolo past this point, that they're maybe waiting for another team to, have a quarterback get hurt or some other situation arise that, makes them interested all of a sudden in Jimmy Garoppolo, and at the same time waiting for him to rehab his shoulder. So, I mean, what do you think?
I think the plan is to tell people that they have a plan. That's what it sounds like. It reminds me of that scary movie part where the dude's like, George, do you have a dream? I have a dream. And what's that dream? To have a dream. That's how outrageous this is getting. It's like, come on, man, you guys messed up. And so ultimately how I see it, like, the leaders can't admit that they messed up. There's no way they're going to say that, because especially it's going to hurt the credibility. And if John Lynch was serious about they had an offer on two twos on the table or whatever it was, now all of a sudden all the NFL GMs are going to be like, okay, these guys are funky. And if they haven't already thought that beforehand. So it's just pretty much that's the only options you can figure out, which is, fingers crossed, which is unfortunate that they got to do that. Fingers crossed to hope someone gets hurt. I mean, I know it's the reality of business, but it's that's
a plan.
Essentially what they're doing.
It's not a plan.
The odds of that happening are very slim if you look at it from like even just the last 10, 15 years. I mean, I can't even think other than someone other than Teddy Bridgewater or who else. I don't. That's very slim. Whatever drama. So I just don't know if how you're gonna find a suitor out there. Why? Who? Exactly.
And actually, one of the last quotes of John Lynch that I want to talk about is this one, because it was really telling to me, because he spent most of his answering his questions by saying we're okay with this and blah, blah, blah. And then this quote, he basically admits that they took an L. He said, we value strength at that position, talking about the quarterback position. To be completely forthright, though, when you make a trade of that magnitude for Lance, most of our options did not include Jimmy on our books. And he's still on the books. So they took an L. I mean, I just don't know how else you can look at this. And then he goes on to say, on our team, but you always have to adapt, and a series of events happen that didn't work out. Again, L. But that's not a bad thing, though. Okay, John. We feel positive with it. Okay, John. And we'll make it work. Okay, John.
Okay, John.
Right
for you.
After he just finished telling us, we fucked this up, but it's going to be okay. We'll figure it out somehow. They haven't been able to figure it out this entire time, and I would say it's harder to figure out now than it was at the combine or the beginning of free agency or whatever. So I
Yeah.
mean,
I just wonder why they view draft compensation as such a big deal versus just getting his money off the books. I view the money getting off the books, and maybe that's just because I'm not in the league, but but they view the picks so highly. Like, how much higher do you guys think you're gonna get for Jimmy? Like, right now he has no
yeah,
value, and with his shoulder injury, what are you gonna get? Like a fourth tops, if that. I mean, is
right.
that really better than getting the money off the books? You could have pursued free agents. That's the thing that kind of whoa, where's the logic here? I don't get what you're trying to do here. Just cut ties with them, bring in extra talent. It's okay to splurge on yourself. You got a little stimulus money because you got that Trey Lance rookie contract to go splurge a free agency. Why not use it? But
Yeah,
they're going
exactly.
this route. I think it's because it all ties into the image. They don't want to disrespect Garoppolo by cutting him because they do love him. And that's something I always reiterate. I don't think people understand like how much teams and these players and these coaches really care about image and PR to a degree when they like someone. It really is valued in this sense where if they were to accept like a 6 for Jimmy, that's pretty much just like, oh, that's all you got for him, or that's disrespecting him. Versus at least you cut him, you could just say like, hey, we're player first, like we did Navarro Bowman. That's why we're cutting him, giving him free choice. But that's probably what they're going to have to end up doing if training camp, if no suitors arise, which I expect is probably going to happen.
Right. And you mentioned the fact that they want to do right by Jimmy. They've said that before, and I get it, right? But are we even sure that the Panthers, who are like the only team pretty much left that could, possibly trade for him, are we even sure that Jimmy Garoppolo would want to go there?
Yeah.
That's another question. And then the Seahawks are another option, but I don't think John Lynch and,
That's off
company would
limits.
want. Yeah, I know. I wish it wasn't. I mean, that would be, I'd love that, but
I just imagine how disrespectful it is. You're Jimmy Garoppolo. It's like, hey, Jimmy, so we just agreed to trade. You're going to Seattle. That's the most ultimate disrespect.
no, but I feel like Jimmy would like that though. Cause he'd
Think
be
so?
like, okay, like I get to play you guys twice a year.
I think maybe
He's gonna go on a revenge tour. He's
He's
gonna go on a revenge
sending
tour.
someone into division, just like, hey, we think you're this week. We're gonna send you in division because we want to see you twice. And D'Amico Ryan's probably telling Kyle and John, please do it. Please do it. It's gonna be so easy.
I know. It's like taboo. That's just something you don't do. So that's very slim chance of happening, even more so than Carolina.
He would fit,
But yeah, I
though.
mean, we don't know if Jimmy would want to go to Carolina. He could just say, if this is the only option we have, just cut me. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. Now I want to talk about Kyle Shanahan's comments because, like I said, he made me feel better. I have a clip of, some of his comments here.
Progression for him to be a starter? Is that something that he's going to have to prove this offseason?
Well, I mean, that's why we looked into trading Jimmy. I mean, because we obviously believe that Trey can be a starter, and we're ready to do that. But if we can't upgrade our team in another way, we're not just going to get rid of a good quarterback because we have other quarterbacks on the roster. Jimmy gets.
Okay, so just that first part alone, like and Mayoko asked a great question, right? By like just straight up asking him like about Trey Lance, and he answers honestly, and he answers in a way that doesn't necessarily hurt Jimmy Garoppolo's value. What did you think about that first comment?
It's kind of hard for me to think about his comment because look how tired he is. My God, it's that West Coast. It's that West Coast. I don't think he was on the
it was
bench.
like 5 a.m. for.
It's like,
so
he's waking up over there at 6, and meanwhile it's like 3 a.m. where I'm at right now on the West Coast where he's used to. So poor guy. But no, I thought, you know what, that's why I said about Kyle, when he answers, he's really good at it. He's proficient. Yeah. He says a lot without saying anything. So that's why I think it's so great. But sometimes he does leave a little breadcrumbs where, you could attach to some things. He's really good at it. That's one thing I respect about his press conferences. And I view it as like an art form almost. The way is why he does it so well. Yeah, you're right about the trade value part and the way it's like, hey, you're pretty much saying like, we're trying to trade Jimmy, guys. Trey's here. And it's like, all right, if we can't get nothing to pick for him, there's no point in cutting him. And I guess by the fact that they said that there's no point in cutting him, it means like we didn't really see a point in cutting him because we didn't view too many free agents that was worthy of being signed. That's what I read into it. And I think it might be also because free agency, that's never been their forte even before. I mean, sure, they'll get like a splash or two. Like, I'm not going to say they never did try, because they did sign Quan Alexander before. They made some swings with like a couple of trades before. But I just don't know that that's really in their DNA, even when you have that luxury of Trey Lance on there. So the fact that they're like, hey, we like our team now. I don't think they just it's clear that they kind of want to run it back a little bit with the same score. They do have a good core, still contenders.
Yeah.
So yeah, good job, Kyle. Way to pick up the slack where John failed.
Yeah, and he didn't leave Trey out to dry, There was a bit of a vote of confidence there in my opinion. And that's really all I wanted. I feel like they needed to do that publicly, because at least, well, I don't know if it's going to quiet down like the outside noise, right, from the outside media, because the one thing they'll latch onto is their comment of, we're not releasing Jimmy Garoppolo. But at least Trey Lance knows, like, okay, my coach said this to everyone, like, not just to me behind closed doors, So like, that's how you know it's real. Like, you're telling other people. So, I like that. And then let me play this other part here.
Surgery, and we can't upgrade our team by getting some good picks until surgery, until people feel good about that. I'm all right with that. I mean, we're not just getting rid of them to get rid of them.
And again, like, he suggests that people weren't interested in Jimmy Garoppolo because of the shoulder surgery. And so, it doesn't make sense to release him now. We can just wait until he's healthy again, and then maybe we can, reignite some trade value there. Is that how you saw that comment too? Like, what did you think about that one?
That's exactly how I viewed it, and I figured that's what they were doing without him saying it. It's kind of delusional, because again, like we just say,
yeah. I mean, yes, it's like we knew what they were doing, but like I said, hearing Kyle say it and like him saying that, yeah, it's just because of the shoulder, like that's it. Like, makes me feel better.
To too.
I mean, I don't think he has to. I don't think John Lynch really mentioned that was the reason, like. So,
well, because they're not going to open. Yeah, you're right, because they're not going to have to try to do the talk about his game plan or anything. So I think they want to just steer all the focus onto the shoulder injury. That's why it's like, hey, just don't worry, guys. We really think he's good. So, because that would be pretty damning if they did say anything else other than the shoulder surgery, especially since they've kind of like propped him up for like a while now, and considering that they always say like the love for Jimmy, we got love for Jimmy. That's why he probably will be on the roster by training camp.
Right. Here's one other thing he said.
If Jimmy is on the roster when you get to camp, how do you envision that playing out? I mean, would it be a competition, or have you got that far?
Definitely haven't got that far. But yeah, we'd figure that out. It would be something. I mean, he'd be on our team, so you'd have to. I mean, Jimmy's a good quarterback, so that he's not easy for anyone to beat out, and that was tough. Trey wasn't ready to beat him out last year. We'll be definitely closer to that this year if it happens, but that's something that we want to have to worry about in training camp. And usually when you have a situation like that, it makes everyone better anyway.
Natural progression.
So, I mean, that's funny too, because John Lynch said, yeah, like we have all these different plans, and like we know that if he's on the roster, like, yeah, we have a plan for that. That was more or less what John Lynch said. It wasn't like, that's not verbatim, but Kyle saying this is like, okay, that kind of contradicts what John Lynch said, because Kyle says we haven't really thought that far ahead.
Yeah.
Which also tells me like that I think they're really banking on trading Jimmy, either trading or releasing Garoppolo like before the season starts. That's what it tells me, because I feel like if not, like, I feel like you would think about that. You know what I mean? Like, if you were thinking, yeah, we're gonna hold on to him like until someone trades for him, even if that means like having him throughout the whole season.
Yeah.
Then you would have a plan. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's the way I saw it.
No,
Maybe
right.
I'm overanalyzing.
Well, there's no such thing overanalyzing on these things, because it's the off season, so that's all we have to do here. But speaking of overanalyzing, I did it too. I counted how many times Kyle Shanahan said 3 times. 3 times on that second part. The first 2 clips you showed, he was very even keel, like he knew what to say. This other one, he was master bullshitter. So that was a little more spin on that one. So you're talking about for analyzer, that's one right there. But I think
that's a good point.
isn't it if they release him too? Like if he's healthy by August and he passes the physical, then that way they don't get that cap hit charge, right? The 7.5 million.
Yes, actually,
that's the reason why you hold on to it. So your point is like right on there on the money.
And Grant actually suggested that, to get revenge on Jimmy, they can cut him August 31st with no guarantee money. Which isn't crazy. Isn't crazy to think, because like my other thought is in my opinion, it'd be something. In my opinion, though, to this point, like I feel like Jimmy Garoppolo in his camp, Donny, his agent, they've played this like perfectly, in my opinion. Like, and as they should. Like this is a business. At the end of the day, you always got to look out for yourself. Donny's looking out for his client, and these are the things you do. So, in my opinion, like the way they played the shoulder injury, and I'm not saying that he got the shoulder surgery late. I'm not saying that he got it late on purpose, but I think for them it was a win-win scenario. It's like, okay, if he didn't need surgery, then they would have green-lighted a trade probably, and Jimmy gets to go where he wants to go. I'm thinking it didn't heal properly, or they found out he did need surgery after all, after resting it a little bit. And then that cratered his trade value, which means he could possibly stay on the team for another year, making $25 million. Like, that's a win-win situation if I'm like Donny and Jimmy Garoppolo. What do you think?
From their side for sure. It's something. Oh my God! Stop saying that. If you say it enough times, you're gonna manifest it. That's the thing. What's gonna end up happening. And that's like, are you sure you're not secretly rooting for Jimmy Garoppolo to come back, Steph? You don't want to see that again? Sure.
Oh, I definitely am not. But the other thing is, because the 49ers are in between a rock and a hard place, right?
Yes, they are.
And so really both situations benefit Jimmy Garoppolo at this point. Him either getting to stay on the team and being the most expensive backup quarterback there ever was, or he gets to start again, God forbid, or he gets released and then gets to negotiate and go to a team of his choice. So the way I see it, everything for Jimmy Garoppolo, every remaining option looks pretty good.
Yeah, he's got the cards good on his hand too. I mean, but if you're the 49ers, under no circumstance do you bring in Jimmy Garoppolo until week 1. Do not do that. That's
I agree.
That's malpractice to me. Come on, 100%. Man. You can't invest all those picks in Trey Lance and then even have that circus, those hula hoops just dragging around him. That's not fair to him at all. I know Shanahan, I think there was another clip too or I don't even know if it was a clip, but I know he did say, like, look, I know Trey's not insecure about it, that the fact that we're going to have him, even if we do carry on. There you go. Boom. Yeah. You set me up. See, we got that synergy. That's Sanchez synergy. But that's exactly what I'm saying. It's like he said he's not insecure about it. So that's the one thing, but great. But it's not about just the players, but how much are you going to want to hear those compounding questions, the narratives from people like me, like Grant, like you, Eric Branch, whatever, every single freaking day, when all you can do is one move, just eliminate it. Shanahan was all pissy with us last year when we were asking about who the starter was. Imagine this year. Now it's like,
and the players get the questions too, and now we know that media is going to be able to go into the locker room again.
Oh my God,
you're not going to be able to shield yourself from, like, players getting asked these questions as much as you did last year, right? And so it is going to be a thing. It is going to be a cloud hanging over people's heads, and I think it would create unnecessary division, because the locker room, there's a lot of guys who like Jimmy Garoppolo, and at the same time, you're trying to get them to buy into Trey Lance. How are you going to be able to do like both at the same time, because a lot of people like Jimmy Garoppolo, right? And you've been able to win with Jimmy Garoppolo. And I feel like naturally a lot of the veterans and a lot of people who have played with him are going to root for him to start again if he is still on the roster week 1, right? Like that's just, these players want to win.
And Steph, what happens if Trey Lance, like early on, especially like first quarter, first half, first third of the season, whatever it is, he has a really rough going of it, and the 49ers losing games because of it, and all of a sudden your veteran players with Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster be like, hey, we weren't doing this with Jimmy last year.
Exactly.
And, you know, these players are the same as the head coaches. They're rational. They think in the now. They don't project. They don't see the vision too much, especially when you are on a Super Bowl playoff contending roster, that it's like, I don't want to wait for this. Like, can we just get the guy? I mean, like, I know he's not ready or something like that. And maybe that's why something that would look, I'm not sure if the division would actually happen, but the thing is that worth the risk? Or you want to, the fact you just have that as an open-ended question out there now? I mean, it's not worth it. Just commit to it. And if you have Jimmy off the roster, then the players like Kittle, you know, all the other players, Debo, they'll see Kyle and John did that. And like, hey, they did the move. And what do they always say? I trust Kyle. And so if Kyle does it and they're going to fully support him, they'll get him to buy in even further than if you keep Garoppolo on the roster. And now all of a sudden, now you have a crutch that's be something that holds you back from being a true contender in 2022.
Exactly. You can't play both sides. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So I'm with you. And it seems like this is going to be a discussion for the foreseeable future, unfortunately. So we'll keep our tabs on it.
Can't wait.
But but one positive that I took, because Judd York said a couple things today too. And my takeaway is that, like, you know, he's not getting involved in these decisions.
Thank you.
I know, right? He's letting John and Kyle handle it, and that's really all you can ask for from an owner, right? And like, I know in years past we weren't quite used to that with Jed. So he's grown up. He said he's okay over investing on quarterback, and he's okay with whatever decision Kyle and John makes as long as the team is competitive and winning games.
It reminds those times with Jay York when he would meddle, like reminds me of like a parent meddling in your kid's youth game when you're not the coach and just getting in there. It's like, hold on. You don't know what you're talking about. And even if you did, like, come on, stop the sideline watching. You paid for your kid all this money. Now you just let them learn stuff like that. So good on Jed for continuing to maintain his stance on taking a back seat. That is the best thing the 49ers could have ever that could have happened for the 49ers once he did that. And to me, it's like, I feel like I can't give him credit for that. I was like, hey, good job for realizing you were the problem.
He got roasted into he got roasted into doing that.
He was getting eviscerated. The guy was getting RKO'd from like the top of a Hell of a Cell tower. That's how bad it was every day from fans, from media members, and it was warranted. My God, the guy pretty much almost put the 49ers into a hellhole for years to come, and then he stumbled upon striking gold and jackpot with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. So good on him that he realizes one Super Bowl appearance, second one almost close. I see the vision. I'm just chilling, counting my bread, and I'm just gonna let them do them, because he knows if he's there, that's gonna make an uncomfortable situation for those two. That's more extra pressure that's gonna be on their plate, more stress you got to deal with. Just don't micromanage. All right, too many people do that, and the fact, especially that you're an owner, you have no idea what you're talking about. You hire them for a reason to do the job that you can't do, right? You want them to keep funneling your marketing, that's the 49ers to be well. So just don't mess with them. Just stay quiet, stay in your little booster chair in the back seat, and let them drive the car.
Yeah. I mean, he's letting them do their thing, and I'm not mad at it. Good for him. All right, moving on to non-Jimmy Garoppolo talk at this point. I think we pretty much covered it all with him that we could. But there were other things that both John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan brought up as they were asked questions by the media. One thing was, is Alex Mack going to be returning? There was some talk about him potentially retiring. And John Lynch said he pretty much expects him to be back. Although I do want to, I don't know if I'm like 100% sure unless it comes out of Alex Mack's own mouth or Instagram, wherever, or, I see him on the field in OTAs with jersey or training camp, whatever, because I recall when Joe Staley retired, they in the offseason, John Lynch pretty much said the same thing, like no signs point to, or all signs point to Joe Staley being back with us. Sounds very similar. And what happened? Joe Staley retired shortly before the draft. So, yes, it's probably likely that Alex Mack is back, but I wouldn't say it's a done deal. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, for sure. I want to hear from the horse's mouth, and I got to see it to believe it. I don't want this little, this little medium, this little middleman messenger type of thing. I need to hear it. I need to hear it and see it come training camp because, like you said, we already saw you guys keep it under wraps with Joe Staley. I don't know if that means because you're gonna get rid of. We're done with the Jimmy. It's Alex Mack time. Alex Mack season every day. I don't know if they're going to try to actually do a trade or maybe something they might go for the draft, which whatever you're going to do, I'm all for it because his time's going to be up at some point sooner rather than later. It maybe whether it's right now, we just don't know about it, or maybe it's his last season. But the point is that's something you got to really take care of. You have Trey Lance for 3-4 more years, ideally more. If he's really solid, you give him an extension. You need to get a young piece to grow with him. That way you can keep a solidified structure, offensive line, decent enough for years to come. So you don't have to worry about that too much because as much as, Lance is like, we're all enamored by his mobility. He's like, hey, that'll help with a little bit of scrambling ability. It's like, yeah, but we don't want him to be running around every snap. Like, come on, man. Like, let's build something very solid for him so he doesn't have to be in that situation where it's, okay, now it's just backyard football every day because Kyle loves for his quarterbacks to work within the structure of the offense first. And if it's not there, then, go freestyle. So, yeah, Alex Mack, that's a huge variable right now. I don't care what John Lynch is saying. Alex Mack has not definitely said, I'm coming back for 2022.
Exactly.
For the 49ers.
Exactly. He said he's expected or like all signs point to that. I don't remember what he said, but it wasn't like, yeah, I talked to Mack and he told me he's coming back. Like, that's not what he said. So, cautiously optimistic on that one. And I think you raise a good point. Like, regardless of Matt coming back, they need to look at long-term answers. Center and quarterback chemistry is very important. And like you mentioned, Trey Lance is just getting started. So why not get him started with, a center that he can grow with either in the draft. Someone pointed out to me that Kyle Shanahan prefers centers to be veterans. All the centers that he's ever acquired for his teams have been veterans. So he hasn't drafted one to start. But I feel like they do have an opportunity that if that's the route they want to go, if they want to draft a rookie, they can because you have Alex Mack for 1 year. So you can you can groom your center of the future for a year and then have him learn under Mack, one of the better centers in the game right now. And next year he can swoop right into that spot and you have your quarterback and center for a very long time. I like that plan.
Alex Mack's situation kind of also like opens up a little bit if you really dig deeper about how a little bit on the older side and very questionable 49ers offensive line is. I mean, Trent Williams, best player on the team, he's up there. He could drop off at any second. You can't pencil him in to be totally elite 2 years from now. Mike McGlinchey, how you can respond from a quad. Daniel Brunskill, he's just a guy. Like we just talked about Alex Mack, and now left guard, you're gonna trust Aaron Banks, a guy who didn't see anything last year. So it's not too good looking there for the offensive line. It feels like you're gonna have to really invest or hope you get some ROI on some young talent already on your roster.
And my thing is, yes, they have Aaron Banks, they have Jalen Moore, and we'll talk about them in a bit because Kyle Shanahan did have some comments on them as well. But I do still think they should look to draft and add more pieces on the offensive line. And I think it makes sense for there to be not an overhaul, but some new pieces now that Trey Lance is projected to start because he is a different type of quarterback than what they had with Jimmy Garoppolo, right? You mentioned like he moves around in the pocket. And last season when we saw Trey Lance, playing in those games, we saw the offensive line kind of struggle, with him moving in the pocket. They're not used to that. So I think it makes sense for a new, younger group of offensive linemen with maybe a different skill set, maybe a little more athletic, to now come in and, mold them all together, and you have your offensive line of the future. But Aaron Banks and Jalen Moore, that, they invested in those two last year in the draft, and they didn't really play much at all. But, all signs point to them having an expanded role come this season. And Kyle Shanahan even said, if you had asked me halfway through the season if Aaron Banks was going to play, I would have said yes. Things started clicking for our team and we didn't want to mess it up, but he's ready to go. I get that. I mean, like, offensive line chemistry is a big thing, and, when that starts molding and clicking, like, you don't mess with that. You don't mess with that rotation unless there's like injuries and you have to, right? So I think Aaron Banks is ready just based on Kyle Shanahan's comments. I'm going to take his word for it. I've been burned listening to Kyle Shanahan before, but I'm going to take his word for it. And then it seems like Jalen Moore, they're looking for him to compete with Brunskill for the right guard spot. What do you think about both of those players? I know you sound a little pessimistic, but what do you think about them getting more time playing?
Yeah, I'm more pessimistic on Banks, especially because he was a second round selection, and you don't draft a guard that high if you don't think he's going to start. So that was kind of a whiff in terms of his rookie year by the 49ers, in my opinion. And you're going to want to now, of course, he was forced to flip to the other side. When you're left hand dominant or right hand dominant, and you're being told to, all right, now you got to switch it and be really good at that side. It's a little unfair to him. It's kind of funny how the 49ers tend to want to put their young talents in spots where, they don't really get their moneymaker. Like, why do they always have a knack? I don't know. That's their infatuation. And we wonder why these young talents can't grow up to be, very solid contributors. But I digress. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that he's going to get that left guard position and be more adept to it because no duh, that's his position. To me, though, I think they want to pencil him in, but I think they're going to dangle it in front of him and make him earn it the same way they talk about Jalen Moore. They're just not going to just hand it to them. I think it's maybe the same thing why maybe Kyle said he didn't want to name a starter. Whether it's also whether it's just solely because he wants to dangle it in front of Lance and show him, hey, just because we trade all those picks doesn't mean we're gonna give it to you. Maybe just an extra little dangly thing, like whatever you do for as a little reward, a little treat, just to keep you motivated, to keep you on your edges of your seat. You don't feel content. And that's kind of an old school way I think about Kyle, and that's maybe why he saw it there. I fully expect all these guys to be in a competition so he can make sure that they're playing at a high level. So that way, if they do win, they do become, contributors, rotational, whatever their case may be. You're hitting the season and they're playing pretty well and they're not so much of a liability.
Yeah, I agree about like the, letting them compete. It seems like they do that with a lot of positions unless they have like an unquestioned starter already there. So I think it makes perfect sense. And hopefully Aaron Banks is up for the challenge as well as Jalen Moore. For those of you guys listening, real quick, go ahead and like this video, please. I mean, we're trying to get it up in the algorithm. Let's go. Stand up. Let's go. Share it on Twitter, whatever. And sorry if you're joining now, you missed the Jimmy Garoppolo talk. I know you guys want to talk more Jimmy Garoppolo, but you'll have to catch the replay. Oh, also best pickup of the offseason, Ross the Boss Dwelly.
Why doesn't Kyle say that like George Kittle has to compete to start over Ross Dwelly? That's something that I'm gonna keep my eye on that if I'm going to training camp again. That's keep my eye on there. Kittle put you on notice.
That's how I know you're a Grant Cohn disciple, because you just said that.
Hell no, I roast Grant all the time. Like, I don't know what your infatuation is, and he just literally will not tell me to straight face if he's serious or not. And I just walk away from him. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go watch the corners, man. Those are usually my people. You go have fun with your infatuation in this guy.
That's a good call. All right, but another thing that John Lynch talked about yesterday was Dee Ford.
Oh
and
boy.
Yeah, I know. We've kind of been waiting for this one, right?
The legend.
is he retiring? Is he going to be released? But John Lynch's comments, he said, I don't see a lot of hope in him being a factor for us on the field moving forward. They seem to have a lot of optimism, or like unwarranted optimism, about D Ford in the past, which tells me, okay, like you done, like you saying this now, like you done. So what do you
Yeah,
think this
finito.
means? Like, obviously it has to do with his injury. Like that's been the biggest thing with D Ford, and it's not, coming together like they thought it would. And so not just on the 49ers is his future questionable, but his whole football career. So
Mhm.
do you think it's more likely that he retires, or they just release him, or both maybe? But do they wait for him to retire? Like, is there some financial benefit to him retiring over releasing him?
um, I think I don't even know if D4 is going to come to a decision to that by then. I mean, he's usually always been someone where he's going to like keep leaving it until like the final leg, like until training camp or something like that. So I think before he even gets that decision, I think the 49ers are going to just have to cut him. Just said, we're not going to wait on him to have his decision. Let's just get it over with now. I mean, my God, I mean, as much as of an impact he was in 2019, it kind of was a failure in terms of he only played like 18, 19 games. Um, it's a rough seeing. This is kind of why I wanted the 49ers to really have Garoppolo off this books, so you could have maybe, beat the Raiders offer. And I know it takes two to tango. Maybe you wanted to go to the Raiders, but maybe beat the Raiders offers to go get a Chandler Jones or just whoever, because you can't rely on D Ford. And the 49ers are finally realizing it. And you hit the nail on the head, is that they were always holding out hope. And now they're finally at that breaking point. It's like, yeah, we can't do it because now his back is just not healing, or maybe whatnot. And I just can't, like, imagine D Ford's thinking. He's probably in the same mindset was Andrew Luck was 3-4 years ago. So that's probably where he's at now. I'm banking on him to retire. Very unfortunate. And it might sound harsh, but he needs to go because he's a waste of a roster spot, for the 49ers. You can't just keep holding out hope. He's like this. He's the same as Jimmy Garoppolo. There's both just like, dead man walkings, whatever. It's a waste. They're just there. It's unfortunate, for Ford, because when he's on the field and healthy, he's a very solid player. But the reality is he's never healthy. And the writing was on the wall. I don't know why the 49ers thought, things were going to be different when they acquired him from, Kansas City. And it just manifested into something just worse. It just kept getting worse and worse as the years progressed for him.
Right. So, I mean, if they do cut him, it's likely to be post June 1st.
I think they take on like 6. I think it's they save like something with 6 million. Pretty much, it's like they free up some money, but there's also a hit. It's just pretty much just still a loss. But I figure it's more beneficial just to get that roster spot back. The same way I say it's more beneficial to get that cap space back from cutting Garoppolo versus the draft pick. So it's the way you just eat the money. Stop being stubborn. Let the guy maybe find somewhere. Which I'd be hard pressed to find any team that wants to sign him if he is released, but. I just flip the page. We talked about with the offensive line, flip the page. They're doing it with the secondary, K'Wan Williams or Kwasi Tart. Flip the page. Let's start going towards the new direction, the new regime.
Yep, I agree. And I mean, honestly, I like a lot of edge rushers, pass rushers in this class coming up. So I think this is as good a time as any to move on and go younger, and hopefully they draft someone who's a day one starter. That would be very good.
Yeah, get some help for edge rusher for Nick Bosa, man. Stop making him be the whole thing. I mean, last season it was great. You had Nick Bosa being the beast, and you pretty much had a nice overall squad there. But I mean, of course, a lot of that is Chris Kaserik. But is that really like sustainable? You're gonna think like you already lost DJ Jones, Arden Key. They got to reload and re-up in the draft with that edge rusher. One of the edge rushers you like, which I have no idea who's actually good right now. I haven't looked at anyone.
I like Ebiketie.
You're gonna have to. Wait, who?
Ebiketie from Penn State. I don't know if I'm saying his last name correctly, but
oh wait, is that the one? I see the one you're talking about. Yeah. See, I've barely briefly touch up on anyone. I usually do that right about now when the April strikes.
Yeah, man, there's so many like names out there floating around. Like I still feel like there's so many people that I need to watch. So
Yeah,
I
and plus
gotta
it's
get
hard because they
to
don't
it.
have a first round pick, so it's kind of like hard where everyone's gonna fall.
Yeah,
Really, I mean, you
yeah,
still probably have to be on your toes because they could maybe package some of these picks to get back in the first. But
you could do it.
who's to say? The draft is such a crapshoot.
Yeah, it definitely is. But they've hit on, a couple of players, Debo and Bosa, for example, and they would like to keep those guys on this roster. And so, they John Lynch provided an update on the Debo and Bosa extensions. He said there's been good communication with both of their reps, and he said those guys are going to be part of us for a long, long time. So, and also Kyle Shanahan was asked about it too, and he said, I recommend it about extending Debo. Um, and I recommend it too. What do you think about this? I mean, do you believe them that well, I don't want to say do you believe them because like I do, but I don't
Yeah.
want to like put into question what they're saying because who wouldn't want to keep Debo and Bosa? But when do you think an extension will be most likely to happen for these two?
Yeah, probably closer around training camp. That's kind of where the trend's been, the patterns of all their players who they know they're going to try to extend. Fred Warner, obviously, George Kittle. I think that's where pretty much what they're going to be looking at. I mean, even with wasn't it the same thing when Bosa got signed? It wasn't until like OTAs or almost until training camp that he finally got signed as well.
Yeah,
So
he was like the
that
last
drew out a
one.
little bit. Same thing with Trey Lance too. I think actually last year it took up until almost training camp for him to sign, but yeah. So I 1,000% believe them in this sense that yes, we are going to keep. Well, obviously Bosa, no duh. My thing with Bosa is I will say is does it behoove him to sign now when he can still increase his value next year? I mean, just judging from what his brother Joey did, I don't think they waited until when he had still 2 years left. I think so he has time. But if you can lock him in now, you're the 49ers, hell yeah, because chances are he most likely is going to raise his value. So let's
Right.
lock him in right now so it behooves us because he's a no-brainer. The Debo part is where I think where they're going to have the nice little tuck and pull because where you're going to find that fine line of where you can be comfortable with paying him. Is he going to demand top receiver money? Maybe. Does he deserve it? No, because he's only had one great season. And his body's a little beat up. Not beat up, excuse me. That's a little harsh, but he has shown to have a little bit of availability issues throughout his career. But I do think they're going to try to really work out, and I think it is going to work out for both of them. I just am very curious of how the Debo extension is going to work out because I think the Niners could probably push for more of a middle line of the pack between like the top paid right receiver and running back and try to find that middle point while keeping his guarantees low. Because to me, I personally don't care about APY. They can have that imaginary number. I care about the guarantees. And I think it's that as long as it falls under, Devonta Adams, maybe he gets like 60 or under 50. You're looking golden for him. And if that's the case, then you can feel a little more comfortable on his usage for the future.
If you're Debo, do you think that it benefits him to wait longer? Because we've already seen a lot of wide receiver contracts extensions happen this offseason alone that have like skyrocketed the wide receiver market, and it's looking good for Debo. Do you think like he waits a little bit longer, see what other deals come by in the next year, or do you think he'll just accept whatever they offer at this point if it's in his range that he likes?
Yeah, I'd say he's gonna just want to cash in now. I mean, what do they always say about the NFL? The not for long league. I mean, so I don't think he wants to maybe risk another year of injury or maybe of diminished play. Right now, his value is on an all-time high. Now, it would be a gamble to bet on yourself, and you're gonna swing for the fences. I'll never disagree with that, but he has a moment in time where he can be cashed out pretty well. And if he just sees that maybe he could do more, he wants to earn more, then maybe what they do with his negotiate is maybe get some incentive for him to meet or something like that, since he is a wide back where he can excel as a receiver and a running back. So I think that's something he could probably try to sprinkle in. Tell Drew Rosenhaus, like, hey, tell him to put in some kickers, because I know I'm not trying to play my little last year of the deal, because the NFL has a baseball aspect to it when they sign players on the last year of the deal. I call it like the unwritten rules of football, where it's a disrespect if you let them play on their last year of the deal. Because if you need that last year of the deal, that's pretty much telling them, we're not convinced about you, or you're not worth
Yeah,
it.
it's like
more time.
it's a gamble for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's they're gonna sign him. They're gonna sign him. I just really am curious, and I think he wants to sign too because they're gonna tell him like, hey, here's some money. He's pretty much gonna be juiced about it.
Yeah. I almost think that for the 49ers, I mean, you just mentioned like sometimes some teams take a gamble and let players, play an additional year before extending them. I feel like it would be beneficial for the 49ers to wait. Because let's just say, like, hypothetically, if Debo was asking for a lot and if it was in a range that they weren't really willing to go to, I feel like waiting could be an option for them until next season because one, Debo, you mentioned like he's had history of not being the healthiest player. I would say last season was an exception. And you'd like to see him do it again. You'd like to ensure that if you're spending all this money on a guy, that he is going to be available for you, right? And then another thing, I'm not sure we see the same usage out of Debo Samuel that we saw last season. Part of his usage had to do with the fact that Raheem Mostert got hurt, and they had Debo who can do some of the same things and be just as dynamic and electric, running the football. But I feel like with Trey Lance under center, we see Debo get the ball less, at least as a running back. So that could be somewhat beneficial. I know running backs get paid less than wide receivers do, but I think the biggest thing with Debo is he can do whatever you ask him to do.
Right.
But if next year he does a little less and he's just playing wide receiver, then I feel like they could take that gamble. I'm not saying they do. I still think they'd be really stoked to extend him, and I mean they should be, but I mean it's an option.
It definitely is an option, especially if, like you said, if Debo does say, "I demand to be highest paid," whatever, because he knows if he gets it, then he has his buddy Drew Rosenhaus has two other clients who are going to try to top his deal or whatever. Or maybe he waits until those two deals are done and then he re-ups. But that'd be a little crazy if those teams, Seattle and Tennessee, give their respective players, deals that exceed Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams because they're not the same player. No matter what, I don't care how many years all three have been in the league versus those two. It's just we just know that's night and day. But 49ers, I think they'll be able to get it to work out. I just wonder where they're going to try to figure out about Debo's going to say, like, I do everything. I do wide receiver. I do running back. And that's where your point comes into play. Like, all right, you think you do that? All right, next year we're going to decrease your versatility usage. But that'd be a very pinching thing to do, just personally, to also like limit a weapon. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them.
I'm not saying limit him, but like
no, of course, yeah,
they won't need to use him. There wouldn't be a need to use him in that same
replaces
way,
that little production or steps up in that position. Yeah. That's a hard one to say in that sense, because I think because they don't have, not unless they get a speed back of the similarity of Mostert, who has that home run ability, because as good as Mitchell is now, unless he elevates this year, Debo still presents that as the best case. I could see it a situation where the first half of the season they don't use him like that as much, and they do the same thing as last year, where because if you start him week 1 to 17, he's gonna break down most likely. Yeah. That's crazy. Most running backs break down, even the top echelon ones. So I could see it the same way they did this last season, where hey, receiver. Second half of the season, all right, now let's get him in the running back sense. Or maybe if the games are close in the first half, then we'll unlock it. In case teams are expecting it. The 3 quarters, they didn't run it. All right, now we can't expect it. And then all of a sudden he runs in the first quarter and boom, it rips off a gainer. So there's a lot of chess moves here that Shanahan can do with that. But ultimately, I don't think they should really do too much overthinking when it comes to the extensions of Debo and especially Bosa. I fully expect him to get signed. And as much as 49 fans thinks I'm trying to say Debo's getting traded, he's not. It's just a possibility if the situation you mentioned says, I want to be the highest paid, because Debo, for all I know, is going to be like, I'm not gonna play on the final year of the deal. You got to trade me because he does have some juice. You're a star player in the league. You have the juice to get traded. So anything can happen. But ideally, and I think they will extend it.
Yeah, I think so too, and I'm 100% for it. I want it to happen like now, but yeah, you mentioned like it's probably the timetable is probably later in the off season, and so hopefully both of those could get done then. Before we head out, the last question I want to ask, or the last thing I want to talk about, is Javon Kinlaw, because Kyle Shanahan did say that, he looks out his window and he sees Javon Kinlaw working out every day, and he said he's in the best shape of his life. And another thing I'm going to add is the fact that Brad Graham of the SF Niners, I don't know if you saw the interview that he had with him on his channel. It was an awesome interview, and Kinlaw is maybe he's one of my favorite players now. Just seeing that side of him, just he seemed like very personable and genuine. But anyway, he gave updates on his recovery, and like he says like he feels great. He feels the best he's ever felt, and I know like it's that season, right, where everyone says this. There's always one player that we hear this about, and so I do want to be cautiously optimistic about it. But what do you think about Javon Kinlaw? I mean, with D Ford out, he's going to have a bigger role. Do you think he's up for the challenge, either talent wise and or health wise?
He's gonna need to be. He's gonna need to be, and that's why you drafted him. What, the first round, right? That top 15 pick. So this is why letting DJ Jones walk was a no-brainer. It's like, hey, DJ Jones is a baller, but I mean, at some point we gotta hit our return on investment, man. We can't just be negligent. At this point, I think the Niners will just be happy if he could just be an everyday starter. Just an everyday starter with an impact play or two here and there, which still not meeting where he's been at in terms of his draft value, but it's better what they've been getting from him from all the injuries, the mishaps, whatever it is. It's really bad. It's starting to feel like now he's becoming the interior version of D Ford almost at some point, which is the same thing when Kyle Shanahan is trying to tell me or tell everyone he's in the best shape. And I thought I heard Fred Warner say something about D Ford, and then sure enough, he pulled a Houdini. So I just don't. Great, good. I'm happy. I hope he is healthy because he hasn't been able to really develop or get better because he's always missing time. He's spending more time rehabbing than he is working at his craft. Yes. And that's something where that's gonna be very stalling. And if he is finding health, great. Then hopefully that way he starts to really see improvement this year. That we probably see better out of him than DJ Jones, because Kinlaw had defending against the run on lock. It's, can he become now that adequate pass rusher? Because we know he does well. I think one issue I always saw from him at a camp with Kinlaw is that he kind of like wants to shed his block, doesn't stack long enough, and just wants to go. Like he just goes, just a little bit that discipline, just wild a little bit, can get a little stone wall. But with health, gets good peak condition. And then boom, Chris Kasarik work his little magic that he always does. And sure enough, you have a beast offensive lineman, and hopefully you keep Eric Armstead in the interior like you have been towards the end of the season. And you have those two with Bosa. And maybe if you get an edge rusher, like you just mentioned, we're looking golden here. We're looking phenomenally golden right now, especially with an improved secondary Charvarius Ward aboard.
I think so. I agree. And obviously, like, we're hoping for the best for Kinlaw. So hopefully he can contribute in a big way and fill those big shoes that DJ Jones left behind. But all right, that's going to conclude our episode. We had a lot of fun. Jose, thank you so much for joining me. And I look forward to having you on every once in a while and talking 49ers football with you.
Hell yeah. Appreciate. Always got to support my cousin. And anytime someone has to invite, it's always like an honor in itself. So that was like a no-brainer. I was just a little like, oh, you mean I got to go on like after 2-3 weeks of Angie not being here? Great. No pressure. It's like when you're the following act in a comedian show. It's like, how the hell do I follow that up?
You can't, but you just hope for the best.
That is true. So shoot a shoe. So you figure it out when you get thrown in the water. And someone's gonna actually believe you when you say that we're cousins, right? Oh yeah. I used to have a friend. Be one person that's gonna really believe that. Her last name was Sanchez too. And we used to trick everyone. It was so funny. And it was like, we're not actually cousins, but it's I don't know, it's all right. There was also another Jose Sanchez in high school, which it's one of the more common Latin Mexican names. So Imagine my guilt. That's why I gotta put the third on all my things. Even in my mail, I gotta see it. Like I gotta make sure it's the right Sanchez because there's a million of them just in my own vicinity. So we gotta build that little differential here. You know what I'm talking about?
I feel it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all of it.
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk to you guys next week. Peace.
Appreciate y'all.